Alright, so let's talk about a hot topic issue right here. Police in The Crew 2. Should they stay or should they go? Well, this video isn't really going to be asking for an answer because I already have an answer. My opinion. And my opinion is pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be a more so persuasion video more than anything else to try and get some support for this. Now, if you don't know, Need for Speed and Hot Pursuit and all that, those are all games that I grew up playing. One of the main reasons I play racing games is to do stuff that I wouldn't be able to do when I'm out driving. And that's get into high-speed chases and crash into cop cars and all that. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that in real life, but I love doing it in video games. And the only racing game that's kind of scratched that recently was Need for Speed Payback. But we all know how the cops are pretty shit in that game. They're not free roam and not that fun. But I mean, they are fun, but that's a different topic for a different day. But The Crew 2 had cops in its before it was released. You look at like E3 when they're showing off the trailer, there's cops going across the bridge and everything. And then you look at the E3 gameplay that they're showing off on the minimap, you could see like the little police icons. And yeah, so I think it's pretty safe to say that police were originally in The Crew 2, but they got taken out at some point. Now, whether that's going to be so they can put them back in later, rework them at a later date, or they just remove them entirely for some stupid reason. So, right, but we're going to be talking about police in The Crew 2 and why they should be brought back into The Crew. So without further interruptions, let us, actually no, before we begin, again, a little side note, I just downloaded a shit ton of shit on my computer, so expect another rip-off video in a couple days. I know a lot of you guys are waiting for a new one. I've got a new one coming out for you guys in a couple of days. I've just got to record it and everything. But yeah, now without further interruptions, let's get into the topic at hand. The police in The Crew 1 weren't the best. Hell, they were far from it, and until Calling All Units was released, they really did not serve too much of a purpose. Just a little extra thing that added to the world and made the world feel alive. I mean, driving around is pretty boring when you don't have anything coming after you or anything reacting to you driving around recklessly. The police in The Crew 1 were mainly there just to add the immersion of the open American landscape. Now, with Calling All Units, however, they added bait crates to the game, as well as a cops versus robbers PvP system, which was not well implemented, to say the least. It was not that good. However, I still had a shit ton of fun chasing and busting people, as well as grinding the bait crates. The Calling All Units expansion turned the cops in The Crew 1 into a form of endgame content with the bait crates. There were new chase routes every day, and they were a great way to get parts and cash easily. Especially like the police missions, if you had the expansion, you could do them in 15 seconds, you get 10k. It was stupid. But hey, that's the reason why I have 9 million. I have the max amount of money on The Crew 1, which is 9,999,999. It's so bad that every time I log in to get my daily bonus, the game subtracts money from my account and puts it back in. It's absurd. It's super funny. Anyway, back onto a topic. There were new chase routes every day, and it kept people coming back. People like me. It kept people who were like still playing the game. It kept them coming back. If they got past the fact that it was a bit broken. Now, if the expansion were worked on a bit more, and if it was like worked and fleshed out a bit more, it could have been a lot better, and it could have been as good as Wild Run. Now, I want to quickly dive into the theme of The Crew 2. Now, don't worry, this is all going to loop back together. The overall theme of The Crew 2, in my opinion, is just straight garbage. I could see what they were trying to do, that they were trying to mimic the Summit from The Crew 1, the whole legal racing festival crap that only Forza can really pull off. The Summit was great, don't get me wrong, but the festival theme really wasn't there. They showed off it being in this giant crater and everything, but it never really, I don't remember it ever being in the crater when it actually got released. Just out in the desert, the salt flats. And I never really got that, you know, festival vibe from it. I just went there to get the new missions for the week, and then boom, I was out racing. It was really just a place to add new events and missions for that week. But going back on topic, it is my belief that Ivory Tower saw the success of Wild Run and the failure of Calling All Units and put themselves in a position where they decided to base the next game solely around legal racing like Wild Run. They wanted to base their next game off of the success that they saw with Wild Run. And there's nothing really wrong with that, since, you know, Calling on a Wild Run worked. That's what worked compared to Calling All Units. However, the success and failure of each expansion can really be attributed to the amount of effort and polish put into each expansion. If calling all units were not disappointing and had a few more months of polish and work done to it to flesh it out, then I could see it doing just as good, if not better, than Wild Run. So Ivory Tower took the idea of Wild Run and ran with it, butchering the idea along the way, don't get me wrong. What we got is some shitty Forza Horizon wannabe. The whole legal aspect just does not work when it comes to street racing. It's alright for everything else, I guess. Even still, the whole theme could be reworked greatly for these disciplines while still keeping the legal aspect of the game. But that's a different story for a different day. The street racing storyline is perhaps one of the worst I have ever played in a racing game. Probably the worst. The whole story is Latrell crying how, oh, street racing is wrong and we need to take it to the street and we take it to the tracks. What a fucking sad excuse for a story there. Yet at the same time, there is no traffic, there are no cops, there are barriers blocking off all the roads. How is this dangerous? Are we doing this legally, or is Latrell crying that this is still illegal? I don't understand. From what Latrell was bitching and moaning about, he made it sound like we were racing around illegally when that doesn't seem to be the case. Street racing should be illegal in this game. Illicit street racing through the streets and cities and running from the cops when they try to shut you down. Does that sound more appetizing than racing around a city while having some dude in a wheelchair yell about how street racing is dangerous? I'm sorry, but that's the vibe I got from the Crew 2's street racing campaign. I'm sorry, but I just choose the first option. I'd rather have the illegal street racing atmosphere for the street racing. Now, this leads me to my main point. Should the police be added back into the Crew 2? Simple answer, yes. Yes, they should. Now, let me explain how they should be added. To put it simply, not everyone is going to want to get into police pursuits. That's fine. The Crew 1's police were good at letting people slide who did not care to engage in the police. The police only engaged you if you touched a crate or rammed into them in free roam. They never came after you for just speeding. If you were cruising with your friends and you ignored them, they'd ignore you. However, I know people are still going to complain just because of their presence alone, and some people are going to want the police to chase after them for speeding and all the little traffic violations that they do. They want that extra challenge. Since the game is only online, the cops they have to be out there roaming if they had them in. There's no way to turn them on and off completely, but a good fix to this would have an option to turn on or off police engagements. Having police on would have the cops come after you for speeding, reckless driving, etc., etc., while having engagements turned off would have the cops around the map ignore everything you do, even if you ram into them. This would be a great way to implement police in a way that allows people to get into car chases when they want to, but also allows people to just cruise around and chill without the worry of law enforcement when they want to. I see some people are still against the idea, and honestly, these people are just being selfish. But it doesn't fit the theme, it doesn't fit the theme. The Crew 2 may be rolling with the dumbass legal racing theme, but honestly, the legal theme should only apply when racing. When you were driving around in free roam, you were still racing around with traffic and pedestrians. You were still breaking hundreds, if not thousands, of traffic laws and putting people's lives at risk. There should be some sort of response. When it comes to car festivals and legal racing events, there are usually cops waiting outside the meetup or festivals just waiting for people to fuck around on the public roads. It would only make sense to them to add them into free roam of the Crew 2, if nothing else. At the very least, it gives people a reason to free roam, and it also can later be expanded upon and made into a form of endgame content similar to calling all units. Now, speaking of endgame content, this is where I'm going to transition into earlier how I talked about street racing, how it should be illegal in the Crew 2. In a perfect world, the Crew 2 would have started you off as an illegal street racer, racing around different cities and then allowing you to turn pro and go legal. Ivory Tower didn't do that, sadly, so now we need to talk about how they can fix street racing in the future. Let's face it, the street racing campaign's garbage, I said that earlier, but might as well try and fix it. I would fix it by splitting the street racing discipline into two different families or camps. Family A is all about illegal street racing, running from the cops, bootlegging, tuning cars, stealing cars, etc. Basically an outlaw family. Basically, you could literally bring back the 510s from the Crew 1 and put them back in the game as this family. You literally could do that. And then Camp B or Family B would be about street racing legally and around a festival, the proper way, not the bastardized Summit Live shit currently in the game right now. Like, I'm talking Pro Street Battle Machine style, that type of shit. Like proper, like, racing in the desert, in the city, like, all that stuff. But it's like, you get that real, like, still, you get a good underground feel, but it's still legal, if you know what I mean. Like, that's a much better feel, much better vibe than whatever the fuck we have now. When it comes to the families and everything, This way, people who don't really care for the illegal street racing thing, they can go and do the pro street stuff, while the people who don't really care about like the pro street type stuff, they can go and do the illegal underground stuff. Like, the crew has such a great basis, so where they can add so many different like types of games into it at the same time while still fleshing out what they already have. Like, again, another example for hypercars would be like hot pursuit events, where like you have hypercar cop cars and you have hypercars and they're racing, like, especially for PvP, you have 4 people who are cops, 4 people who are racers. The people who are cops have to bust the racers. Like, there's so much they can do with what they have, but they really they just gotta think outside the box and not add unnecessary shit, like add new disciplines and all that, while they can still add new families to already existing disciplines. I feel like that could work. Like, have multiple families for street racing, have multiple families for pro racing, like, etc., etc. Like, I feel like that could work. Now, getting back onto topic with the police. Now, let's talk about when to implement police. I would love to see police added to the Crew 2 as soon as possible, but at the same time, I will admit that police are not the biggest issue plaguing the Crew 2 right now. It is one of them, however, I will say that. I would say that once Ivory Tower has PvP sorted and fixed, along with most of the bugs plaguing the game, and after they've added a race editor, I think a race editor takes top dog after it comes PvP in terms of priority, then I would like to see police make a return. And I think having a rework of the street racing discipline is also a must alongside it. Which would you rather have? Ivory Tower release a bunch of new disciplines such as paintball, demolition derby, that all just further split up the community? Or would you rather have them add on to arguably the biggest discipline in the game and flesh it out more with new families? Again, like I said earlier, there can be multiple families per discipline. If you want to keep adding new families per discipline, that's awesome, as long as you're still fleshing out the current discipline. Similar to factions. Hell, you could even flesh out the families and turn them into factions, or make them the new factions and have different missions for each family in terms of factions, and make those the new faction missions, and then have like the leaderboards of the different families like you had with the Crew 1. I just had a fucking mental breakthrough here. You can have the families turn into the factions and have like faction missions, but instead have them family missions, and then at the end of every month you have like the different families and which one's top dog and which one's not, you know? Like, you can have them battle against each other. That would be so sick. And that would, again, more endgame content right there. But that's pretty much my rant for today. What do you guys think about police in the Crew 2? Should they stay? Should they go? I personally believe they should stay. And, you know, there's no real change in my opinions. My opinion's my opinion. I'm just going to be straight honest. I'll be transparent with you guys. You know, but I'm just saying. And that's going to be all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Also, if you have some ideas for police in the Crew 2, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. But that's going to be all for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see some more craptastic content, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell icon so you don't ever miss an upload. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitch and join my Discord to be able to chat with me and some others. That's all for now, guys. Have a good one.